AI is completely collapsing your traditional marketing funnel. Buyer journeys are no longer linear, right? They're getting compressed, they're becoming non-linear, and you can almost sort of intuitively get to it with buyers expecting instant validation and proof, right? Hands-on. Time to value is, those that have good faster time to value can use that as a competitive differentiator. Launch is no longer about controlling the narrative. It's more about co-creating it with what already happens in the market, right? Now bring in AI. AI is accelerating that change. AI will accelerate that change even more. Buyers walk into conversation with a full research dossier for their AI-powered search results, comparison tables, sentiment analyses that already tell them how you stack up vis-a-vis your competition. That shifts go-to-market from persuasion to enablement. We built an AI tool that automated parts of a project management workflow. We thought it was game-changing. But guess what? Customers said, well, so what? Who cares for 2 out of the 50 things that you automated with AI, right? We still have to manually do the remaining 48 things. It's not solving the core of the problem, right? So stop calling your product AI enabled when it really isn't. That lesson, stuck with me. AI is only important if it's purposeful.
Madhup Mishra sits at the intersection of the product and the market. And when we think about product launches today, we know the buyer's changing more than ever. We know that AI is playing a bigger role than ever in any purchasing decision. And we know that we are personally using AI to help us make decisions, especially buying ones. We talked about buying a car in this episode, so how AI has changed that. But Madhup gives us very actionable advice for how we should be thinking about AI use cases, distinguishing between AI products and AI features, and plugging into what will help our go-to-market strategy the most. Hey everyone, welcome back to the OnBase podcast. I'm your host, Chris Moody, and today I'm very excited to be joined by Madhup Mishra to talk about driving go-to-market strategy in the age of AI. Thanks for joining us today. Welcome to the show.
Thank you, Chris. Thanks for inviting me to the podcast. I appreciate it.
Well, I'm really excited. This is another episode. I appreciate your time, first of all, but this is another one where before we even hit record, you and I had 4 or 5 topics we could have spent the entire hour talking about. Before we do that, tell everyone a little bit about your journey and what led you to what you're doing today.
Sure, yeah. My name is Madhup. I am Senior Vice President of Product Marketing at a company called SmartBear. We're based in Boston, and we're delivering software API and QA products to development software engineers and QA test teams. I've been in B2B tech for over 20 years. I really just stumbled into product management really early on in my career. And at that time, it wasn't a well-defined discipline at all, right? It almost felt like a wild, wild west, where you had to sort of figure things out as you went along. And actually, I loved it. I grew up in an environment where you're learning how to build things and solve real problems, often sitting shoulder to shoulder. Your engineer, pre-sales engineer, and a customer really mattered, right? Over time, I found myself moving more towards a go-to-market function. My product management buddies claimed that I went to the dark side. I didn't care. I always loved storytelling. When I was a kid, I used to tell, all these sort of stories. I think it naturally evolved into product marketing. Funny enough, product marketing feels like what product management used to be 15 years ago. Misunderstood, not defined, right? There's this tension. There needs to be clarity, but there's confusion, right? We need to sort of, that's sort of bringing that clarity to confusion has been a constant theme in my career. And at the core, I sit between, product and market, technology and what it really means to the business, right? Whether it's positioning technical products in crowded markets, helping sales cut through the noise. I've always thrived in those intersections, right? And this is a very passionate topic of mine, right? AI is rewriting the rules. I think, some people would say that even the rules are out the window, right? So some of the core tenets of the depth of your product, your go-to-market strategies will feel even more important now than ever.
Yeah, I love that. I love the storytelling point. I'm the same way. My mom used to always say I would argue with a brick wall, but to me, I'm just a great storyteller. That's where my brain goes. And I think You and I hit on this before we hit record, but we'll bring everyone else up to speed. There are so many AI use cases that are talked about today and AI features. It's really difficult to match what we should be using to our strategy and what's vaporware, what's real. I'd love to understand from your opinion, what are the most significant ways that AI is rewriting the rules? And it's fine if it's throwing them away, to your point, but how is AI changing the go-to-market strategy today?
Yeah, it's a very important question. I think, one that one has to acknowledge that we don't know the answer to, no one person does. In my opinion, AI is completely collapsing your traditional marketing funnel, right? Buyer journeys are no longer linear, right? They're getting compressed, they're becoming non-linear, and you can almost sort of intuitively get to it with buyers expecting instant validation and proof, right? Hands-on time to value is, those that have good faster time to value can use that as a competitive differentiator. One of the things I would sort of talk about here would be product-led growth, right? Gone are the days where only sales and only sales would be what really explain what the product really means to the customer. The products need to do that themselves, and AI surfaces these signals through your website behavior, right, of traffic, through your trial flows, through the in-product usage of data within your product, and the intention behind the prediction on what the customer really wants to buy. So for some buyers, sales engagement almost becomes optional. I remember when I bought my car, which was at the end of this last year, I did most of my research before I even got to a dealership, right? Software and B2B is no different. And the other thing I'd say is, there's all this data that AI can help unlock for us, right? So AI can potentially help redefine your ideal customer profiles. It can actually power a really powerful lead scoring engine, right? It can optimize your channel mix on how you talk about your product and which channels. And then it can take your very static sort of playbook or go-to-market playbook into something that's much, much more dynamic, right? We talk about personalization of message. Well, this is about hyper-personalization, and do it at scale, right? Deliver the right message in the right channel at the right time. That's table stakes, right? It's moving away from, this funnel construct, which I said was going to get collapsed, to more of a flywheel, right? It's about you're always on, you're being customer centric. It's about optimizing continuously, but I'm going to throw a caution in there, right? Let's not over automate either, right? AI is about helping us humans, get the right decision done. It's not about replacing people, right? So some people may still want to buy from people, right? And it's, people say that people don't buy technology, they buy from other people they like. Well, that doesn't go out the door, but AI is definitely helping rewrite the rules to go to market for sure.
Totally. I love your point about people. I think, for those of us in roles that may be betting our jobs on the decisions we make and the vendors we use, you want a person that you trust that's going to look out for you and fight for you and work together to solve your problems. So I think that's an important point. We recently purchased a vehicle as well, and AI guided almost everything in the process for me. I want to ask you about the changing buyer behaviors, but before I do, just on the car point, we did something very similar. My wife and I have 4 kids, 14, 10, 9, and 2. That creates a very strict criteria that have to be met because we also pick up 2 children in our neighborhood. So carpool is 6 children in the car. My 14-year-old's already 6 foot tall, right? Third row has to have space. But we knew that gives us 5 options, let's just say 5 options for what would actually work for our use cases. And I didn't even care to drive the car, honestly. It wasn't the traditional car buying experience. I had gone through Gemini, ChatGPT, multiple other sources, built comparison tables. I knew the dimensions of all the rows and how much headroom and leg room. And then I could compare that to what we currently had and which has the most reliable engine. And then it became a function of price and honestly, the customer service, the person. So did the person cut to the chase and just say, okay, I even put rules in there. So this tells you how much prompting I've been doing lately. I said, don't call me. You can text me or email. I'm in meetings. I might be recording a podcast. don't call. And I sent that out to 8 different dealerships with exactly what I wanted. 5 of the 8 called immediately. And I did learn later, maybe their lead routing system didn't put the message forward, but still, to me, that was unacceptable. So they were off my list. And then it was narrowing down to 3. And that was much easier to do with AI because I was automating and personalizing and fighting for the best deal. I had a lot of research that I'd already done that was assisted by AI. What are the shifts in buyer behavior that you're seeing that change the way we all need to plan and execute our product launches? So if we reverse engineer the product launch based on how you and I probably just went through the car buying experience.
Yeah. No, I think you hit a lot of those points, Chris. I think, by the way, I did the same. And one of these days I got to tell you about, I bought a gaming PC for my teenager and how I built an agent to do that. But
yeah, we got to hear that one.
But the biggest shifts in, buyers are becoming more skeptical, right? They're less patient. They don't want like your 6-month email nurture campaign to tell you about, the company's differentiation, right? That expectation, that clarity needs to happen up front and almost at the very first touch, right? They're not forming opinions only through your marketing channels. Let's just, agree on that, right? They're listening to their peers. They're reading up on communities. They're, in my trade, I sell to developers, but there are all these forums, right? Reddit and others that developers go to understand, right? So by the time they engage with you as a business, they've already built a perception of your product very similar to your car buying experience, your positioning, and likely even your pricing. So launch is no longer about controlling the narrative, and it's more about co-creating it with what already happens in the market, right? Now bring in AI. AI is accelerating that change. AI will accelerate that change even more. Buyers walk into conversation with a full research dossier for their AI-powered search results, your tape comparison tables, your sentiment analyses that already tell them how you stack up vis-a-vis your competition. That shifts go-to-market from persuasion to enablement. We need to sort of change our mindset to sort of not talk about, I'm going to convince this guy with the most clever message, here's going to tell you my story. No, right? It's about how can I enable the buyer to make the right decision for them, right? For whatever the criteria they have, right? So how quickly can I help you as a buyer experience the value on your terms? The other big change is around engaging in the engagement with the buyer, right? Personalization. I mentioned that a little while ago, right? Hyper-personalization is no longer optional, right? AI can tailor messages, content, flows down to the role, industry, pain point to a specific buyer, right? So nobody is interested in getting this generic marketing-y message that, doesn't even apply to, you as an individual, let alone, a group or a cohort, right? It's about personalizing it. That message. It's about automating the outreach. It's about conversational AI. I mean, I remember I got my washer fixed, and no, Sears is not paying me, but I talked to a Sears agent online, and they diagnosed my problem and sent a tech to my place. Right, so that automation, that conversational AI is already happening. Right. So as you're talking about launches, you need to bring in AI to help you get that product into the hand of your customers. You need to raise the bar for every launch. Your buyers expect that level of immediacy, right? You don't need to you go slowly to build your story and deliver that crafted message. Show differentiation really fast. Be ready to meet the buyer wherever they are, and then use AI to deliver a highly personalized, message and campaign at scale, right? Yet keeping your human touch with you, right? Don't sound robotic either. So I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, that was really helpful. And your point about meeting the buyer where they are, you hit on that earlier too, saying that you're between the product and the market. And markets are changing. We say this every 5 years. You and I have been in tech the same amount of time. Every 5 years, I feel like we say the market's changing faster than ever. But with AI, I believe it more now than I did any 5-year segment in the last 20. with the market changing so quickly and the buyer changing so quickly, if you're thinking from the pure product marketing, product development, product launch type of approach, if you're bringing an AI product into a market that may not fully exist yet, or the market may not even understand the use case, honestly, how do you decide where to start and what to prioritize?
Yeah, I'm sure that's a question at top of lots of marketers' mind, right? Because let's admit it, since AI is, come into being, every C-level executive is hammering get launching an AI product to market as we speak, right? So as product people, as marketers, we need to ask the tough questions, right? And the answer is similar to what you and I talked about earlier. I think it was before the recording. The answer lies in the use cases, right? It's not about sort of, I built this AI thing and I'm going to launch it, right? What are the use cases? Where does this AI create undeniable value for your customers today? Right? What are those high friction workflows, high value workflows that are slow today that the AI can sort of grease the skids on and help deliver on? That's where you're going to find the real sort of early proof points, right? Your customers who need who validate this need, right? Those ROI case studies that you can build on, and those entry points that open the doors for you as a business to larger markets, right? And before before the launch, you need to ask this key question: is this a product or is it a feature, right? Because a lot of times what we think is big internal thinking, group think within the company is likely a small feature from a customer standpoint, right? It's very tempting to slap an AI on something and call it like groundbreaking, right? Unless it's solving a real problem, it's product like, it'll come across as very gimmicky, right? I've seen it firsthand, right? We built an AI tool that automated parts of a project management workflow. We thought it was game changing. But guess what? Customers said, well, so what? Like, who cares for 2 out of the 50 things that you automated with AI, right? We still have to manually do the remaining 48 things. It's not solving the core of the problem, right? So stop calling your product AI enabled when it really isn't. That lesson, stuck with me. AI is only important if it's purposeful. So the best AI launches don't feel like your AI is bolted on to whatever it is that your company's narrative is. It feels like it sort of rides with it, right? It rides with whatever your company's sort of position in the market is. Be it about, around empowering your customers. It could be around transparency that AI can bring in. And some companies even sort of go with messages like AI for the good, right? Unbiased AI, right? So buyers can smell the hype from, a mile away. Winning companies are the ones that'll integrate this AI in a very authentic fashion with the use case that's very believable, solves true problems, and brings the customer along to feel like they're part of something big and meaningful.
Yeah, that's great. And I think it's important to note that you're referring to, well, currently a more technical and developer audience, which I've been in those spaces before too. I think it's safe to say they are even better than average at detecting what is BS and marketing speak than some audiences. So you can't pull a fast one on them. Not that we would ever endorse pulling a fast one. I have a question that it's kind of a combination of a few things that we had put in our notes. And if we're trying to build advocacy and trust, so let's think about both. We don't just want cookie cutter engagement. We want someone to believe in what we're doing, to trust us and adopt and hopefully be an influencer and helping to drive those communities forward. What are some of the tips you would give someone to move into that advocacy type of state for a more technical audience too, which I think are more discerning than most?
That's right. Yeah. And I think you hit the nail on the head, right? Developers are very nitpicky and they're very sort of logical thinkers, right? So it needs to sort of be very no fluff way of communicating with them. And which is why my mantra is not to sell them, but to enable them and help them try to get to the value that they're trying to seek, right? So I think this advocacy, by the way, is for developers and even in general, is more critical today than ever before. And the reason why I say that is people are as much as everybody likes Google, there are things like Perplexity and ChatGPT and all of these other places where people are trying to search for those answers, more codified answers before they go for a generic Google search, right? Google Intelligence has Google's answer to the same problem. And a lot of the data that fuels the responses that these LLMs and these applications are rooted in the voice of the community. They're training those AI models from Reddit and all those open communities, even Wikipedia in some cases. And therefore, this advocacy, while it was important before, it's even more important now. Why? Because if you don't do it, Perplexity or ChatGPT will recommend your competitor's product over yours because they're being advocated by all kinds of their users in a variety of different places. So advocacy is becoming an essential part of your search strategy. And in my mind, there's like the key mantra to do real advocacy is three things: ownership, ability to share, and celebrate, right? So what do I mean by that? Advocacy happens when you bring in the developers into helping you create something together. Give them the APIs, give them ways to extend your product, give them opportunities and projects to extend your product in different ways. And the ideas that they bring to the table for your roadmap, incorporate it in how you're evolving the product and capabilities, right? Then they will start to feel that they have a sense of ownership. They have a sense of, their skin is in the game for them to be, your natural champions, right? So that's ownership is step number one. Step number two is you need to lower the barriers to share, right? If a customer of yours or a developer in this example, it has to go through 15 hoops to say something about you, right? To create content, to share your code snippet, and if you're selling your marketing to developers, or publish an integration that they built, well, you've lost, all hope. Right? The idea here should be for them to, be able to come up with a piece of content and put it out in the community very, very easily. Enable that authentic share of voice, amplifying, that it reinforces and amplifies your story as fast as you can. Come up with those starter kits, that open documentation, those community forums where their engagement can become possible and become easier. And when they do share, make sure you shine a spotlight on them. If they're building cool things, cool applications with their product, cool integrations, highlight them. Developers are suckers for swag, right? Get them the swag, recognize them for what they're doing, invite them into conferences and, co-present with you. In some cases, present on your behalf, showcase their blogs on your website. Recognition is a very powerful tool, right? When developers feel seen, they lean in deeper and their advocacy becomes contagious. And as all of this starts to happen, guess what? It's going to get out there in those public forums, and those AI search engines will pick that up and will provide you as the response to all those queries that you were currently left out of.
That's perfect. I think you may have answered some of this question too. You were just hitting on it, but if we gave you your own new startup and you could put kind of the Madhup verified badge on any go to market approach that's truly AI driven. Now, you and I talked before we hit record. We know that lots of folks have put AI powered, AI enabled, AI X, like blank with AI, Uber for AI, all the things. We've seen it. But if you were going through to detect who is delivering a real sustainable business impact with AI, what are some of the most telling indicators for you?
Yeah. I think those KPIs can, of course, everyone jumps to pipeline, right? Pipeline is a solution to all problems. Well, in my case, in my view, pipeline is of course important for, AI enabled startup or AI enabled go to market, AI enabled businesses. But I think the real signal for me is the depth of engagement, right? The depth of engagement. Are the customers expanding beyond the use cases, the first use case they bought you for? Are developers actually integrating your tool into their workflows? Are communities talking about you, right? So these are all the things that I feel like will talk to the depth of engagement, right? So I would sort of, look at the engagement metrics. The few areas that I can think of are leading indicators, right? How many people are asking for a demo of your tool, right? How many conversations or sales happening on the back of those demos, right? Are customers coming back as they're expanding from an expansion perspective? And then, of course, advocacy. Are they saying good things on your behalf? Are they giving you higher ratings in those public marketplaces, et cetera? So to me, these are all the ways that you can sort of gauge the depth of engagement. And to me, that tells me a much stronger, your foundation is a lot stronger for in this sort of AI enabled go to market.
Great advice. Great advice. We should all do that. We should all follow this. I mean, the benefit, you hit on that too. When we're getting recommended in all the AI searches, I think that's the ultimate payoff that we'll start to measure, track, and seize. I love everything you said there. We have a few questions left, and I call this the lightning round. I don't have fancy music. Those who listen regularly know that I'm always like, pew, pew. In my head, there's some pyrotechnic event that happens right here. But most of these are quick hitters, so you can answer them as fast as you want. The challenge in answering this question is you can only pick one thing. What is the single biggest challenge in B2B marketing today?
I think the single biggest challenge is confusing activity with impact, right? To me, everybody does a lot of stuff. And if you ask them, they all feel like they're contributing and adding value. To me, we should never confuse what it is that you're doing to what it actually truly means and what the impact or the outcome of the business is. So I would always start with, if anyone in my team brings me a launch plan, I would start with what is the outcome that you're looking to do? And then sort of back into what the activity needs to be.
Perfect. That's the wrong ABM, activity-based marketing, which we've all been there too. What about your favorite tools or technology? You've shouted a few out, but what are some of the tools or tech that you're using that you really like today?
Yeah, a couple of things. I mean, there's all kinds of interesting tools. A lot of them have become AI enabled, so that's also fun. One of my favorite tools is Gong. Like, I really like Gong because, we have lots and lots of sellers, and I'm very interested in, are we able to communicate the right things to the customer, the types of questions that are coming from the customer standpoint. It allows you to listen to individual conversations, but more importantly, it can allow you to sort of get into the analytics behind it and sort of see what's actually resonating in the market. So to me, that's one of the salesy tools that I like. Another tool I like is more around in-product analytics, right? Some people like Pendo. I like Amplitude. And this is about, are you able to map that customer journey from the website into your product trial, into monetization for you, right? Are the users going in? Are they seeing the aha moment? Are they feeling compelled enough to go buy your tool? Or not, right? Are they getting lost in there somewhere, right? Or do you trying to appease to lots of different ICPs, which is usually the problem with lots of companies. So to me, both of them are data driven. One is sort of more sales led motion for us to sort of see how that happens, and the other is more product led motion where you're trying to sort of see the right behavior in the product and you try to see if you can guide the customer through the buying process.
Awesome. We love Gong too. I actually have a conversation with Udi this week at our leadership offsite, so we're pumped for that one. What about good reads? We're generous with this one too, Madhup. It could be book, blog, newsletter, podcast, video, any type of content consumption means, but what are some of your favorite standouts?
Yeah, I'll give you one. There's, of course, so many, right, that you could do. And I think in B2B tech, I've always enjoyed those that can unpack positioning for your product, for your company. And this lady, April Dunford, wrote this book, obviously awesome, which I thought was like boiled it down to just the basics of what positioning needs to be. I highly recommend. She actually wrote like the sales pitch and a couple of others, but to me, the obviously awesome was her best piece of work, right? Bring clear, practical framework to help companies define what's value for their market, for their customers.
Yeah, that's a great one. And a good transition too, because we like to ask about good people, which April fits that category as well. But who are some of your most inspirational folks in the B2B space?
Yeah. Couple of people. I mean, I'm a big believer of Simon Sinek, right? I follow his principles from a leadership perspective as well, right? We always get into a conversation with, the what or the how, right? And we rarely get to the why, right? So, Simon and he, by the, start with the why, right? Get to the root of what motivates a person. And then you'd be able to communicate really, really effectively with them, right? That purpose-driven leadership within the company, but also to your customers, right? Your customers also, they're real people. They have real needs. If you could sort of tap into their inner why, I feel like you can really have a relatable point of view in what you're sort of communicating out to the market, right? So Simon is definitely a great one. I mean, we're on the topic of AI, so it'll be remiss if I don't mention an AI guy. Ethan Mollick, he's a professor at Wharton School of Business. He's written a few books on AI. He's a B school professor, but he's writing code, he's vibe coding, he's creating these agents. I find it super, fascinating in terms of AI and how AI can help B2B companies more effectively. There's all this concept around AGI and things like that, which is like we can dedicate a whole podcast to. But go check Ethan out. He's very active on LinkedIn and other social places, talking about practical tips on using generative AI for B2B tech.
Outstanding. We will do that. Great recommendations there. And then you have made it to the most important question of all. How can everyone get in touch with you after this episode?
The best way to do that is via my LinkedIn profile. So I'm sure we're going to make that link available to your audience. But please drop me a note. Happy to have a conversation. If you're wrestling with how to bring AI into your environment, I can offer a tip or two.
Awesome. Well, Madhup, thank you so much for your time. It was a pleasure.
Thank you, Chris. Thanks for your time. Thanks for having me on the podcast.
Thank you. Take care.